Good evening, everybody. It's Olivia Scott with Loyola University, New Orleans. I'm the Assistant Professor of Advertising in the Loyola University School of Communication and Design. And we are here with another episode of Behind the Ad. Tonight, we are going to talk to an amazing and accomplished marketer who has an esteemed level of experience, a number of years of experience in nonprofit marketing. I've been working in marketing for 27 years. I'll go ahead and say 27 years. And I've mostly been focused on profit marketing, various brands that they are very specifically selling products or selling services. But I've had the exposure recently to nonprofits and got wind that the fact that there's a little bit of something different when you're selling a nonprofit versus something for profit. So I reached out to NOCCA, which is an amazing organization here in New Orleans, the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. So tonight, we're going to speak with Richard Reed. Richard Reed is the Director of Communications and Public Programs for NOCCA. And he's been very clear, NOCCA Institute had a major change in their name to NOCCA Foundation, and he is here with us tonight. In addition to Richard being the Director of Communications and Public Programs, he is also a professor at UNO. So tonight you have Loyola and UNO coming together. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring Richard in. Richard, how are you?
I'm fine.
I'm glad you're fine. You know what's happening? There was all these things flying on my screen, and I just did not have the opportunity to silence them. So I'm going to make sure I'm clear about that again. We've got NOCCA Foundation, the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. And, I'm new in town. I keep hearing NOCCA, 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 and I finally drove by in the Bywater area. Can you tell us just a little bit more before we get into talking specifically about marketing? Can you tell us a little bit more about what NOCCA is really all about?
Sure. NOCCA has been around for almost 50 years, and it is essentially an arts high school that serves the city of New Orleans and kids throughout the region, technically throughout the state. And kids come for a full day, a half day, or they come after school and they study in one of 11 disciplines. They've got everything from jazz to creative writing to culinary arts, media arts, all sorts of fields. I work for the NOCCA Foundation. We provide additional support to the school for things like capital campaigns. We provide support for students who need to travel to go to college auditions. We support artists in residence programs, professional development for the faculty who are all professional artists themselves, and so on.
So I've heard about NOCCA for years, even before I moved here. And I understand you guys have some pretty famous alumni, right? This is like the famed School of the Arts for New Orleans. Would that be correct?
It is. The famed school is called LaGuardia School, which is in New York. Yep. And we are their sister school here in New Orleans. There's actually a network of performing and visual arts high schools across the country, and LaGuardia and NOCCA are both members of that organization.
Amazing. All right. So you answered my next question, which is what the foundation does separate from the organization. Mm-hmm. So I want to get into it. So I've talked to you offline about nonprofit marketing and for-profit marketing. Can you tell us from your experiences what some nuances in terms of differences might be for any of our students or any professionals watching around the difference between nonprofit marketing or for-profit marketing?
Sure. Overall, I think there are very few differences. I think that the day-to-day stuff that we do, sort of granular stuff, that doesn't change. You still have to know your audience. You still have to segment them, and you still have to speak to them in a way that where they can hear you, and you have to go out to meet them. You can't expect them to come to you. So all in all, I think there's a lot of similarities. Also, whether you're marketing a nonprofit or a for-profit, it's like I tell my students at UNO, you're never selling the thing that you think that you're selling. You're really selling the experience of the thing. It doesn't matter if you're selling a luxury car or jeans or an after-school program or concert tickets. You're still selling the experience. Maybe that experience or value comes with, increased status for driving that luxury car, or giving your kid a leg up with that after-school program. So all in all, I think there are enough similarities that you can make the transition from one to the other. That said, the nonprofit sector does have at least one advantage and a couple of disadvantages. The advantage, I guess, that we have is that today's consumers really want to feel like they are morally or ethically aligned with the company that they're doing business with, whether that's Amazon or Zappos or Warby Parker or a nonprofit like a museum or a theater company. It's sometimes harder to get the right feeling to understand what a company is for, because companies are not first and foremost about a mission. They are about making money. Even Warby Parker, which is a B corporation or a benefit corporation and has a social component to its organization, they still exist to sell eyeglasses first and foremost. Without the eyeglasses, the rest of their work sort of crumbles. Our mission is front and center. That is really what we do. There's very little opportunity to prevaricate about that. It is right out there. It's usually one of the first things that people see on our website. So people can get a fairly quick understanding of who we are and what we're about. Whereas with companies, you never know, or for-profit companies, I mean. That said, we do have a couple of disadvantages. I would say that the biggest and the most pressing is that people look at us funny if we spend too much on marketing. We're just not expected to spend huge volumes of money on marketing dollars. There are organizations that track nonprofits.
Yes.
And they will rate them according to the percentage of their budget that they spend on administrative needs versus programmatic needs. But so they ding us for having too many people on staff or spending too much on marketing. But most of what we do is services. Without the staff in place, those services don't exist. So of course we're going to have a fairly heavy line item for our personnel. And similarly, they feel like spending too much money on marketing is taking away from the programmatic dollars that you could be spending that money on. But if I can spend $10,000 and raise $100,000, why wouldn't I? Instead of spending the $1,000 that I've been allotted and just raising 10, that gives me $90,000 to spend on programs instead of the $9,000 that I would ordinarily get. And lastly, there is a bias. And it sometimes comes from within the organizations themselves. It is very old school bias, but it still exists. And it's been around for decades. And I feel like its time is long since passed to go away. Some people on nonprofit staffs feel that spending money on marketing is absurd because people are just going to give us money because it's the right thing to do. All we have to do is tell people where to be and when, and people are just going to show up, knocking on our door, ready to, buy all of our concert series or buy our gala tickets or send kids into after school programs. That's just absurd. There are dozens, hundreds of nonprofits working in the greater New Orleans area who are all doing amazing work. There's a lot of need in New Orleans, and these organizations are out there meeting that need, but that is not enough. Just because you are meeting a need is not enough to get people to give you money. There's not enough money in the world to support all that. You have to, I forget who said it, but I have it sort of taped to the wall next to my desk, is that money is a byproduct of value. And if people don't understand the value that your organization brings, they're not going to give to you. And the way that we explain the value that we bring to the table is through marketing. Whether that marketing is advertising or, more commonly these days, social media. That's how we tell our story.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to come back to the gala because you mentioned that. I had an experience recently here in New Orleans. I attended a gala. I won't mention the organization, but they had the gala actually occur in the high school gym. And I had to think about it. I was like, this was actually really smart. Not only were they able to show the different classrooms and the computer needs and what was needed if you were donating to the organization that night, but instead of them spending money they didn't have on an amazing venue in the French Quarter or whatever, they were really putting the dollars to where they needed to be. So I definitely know what you say to be true about there being a watchful eye on nonprofits and how they spend their dollars. And, I've been on Charity Navigator myself, when I'm making a decision around who I'm going to contribute to, go, oh, 85% versus 95. Well, like, oh my gosh. So knowing the percentage of dollars that the organizations are putting towards programs versus administration. But I'm glad that you did share. You need the people, right? You need the people. So we talked about how you really focus, because I was going to talk to you about paid marketing and paid media. And you said, Olivia, we really focus on earned and social. So can you tell us specifically, for anybody who's in the nonprofit or any of our students who plan on working in a nonprofit or anybody watching this for whenever, what are the specific marketing tactics that you found that work to really get in and to engage donors to give to you? Is it email? Is it having posts on Instagram? Is it Pinterest? Is it YouTube videos? Like, what are you finding from an owned or an earned perspective that really works for you?
So I'll just say earned media, I do not spend a lot of time on these days. There is just so little bandwidth particularly in legacy media these days, that I'm lucky if I get a decent story every couple of years. Now, NOCCA the school can often do a little bit more than that. They have their own communications director who does things like help drive recruitment, and we work closely on a number of events. But me personally, for the programs that we do, I don't have a lot of success these days, and that's just because the real estate in print media and the bandwidth in broadcast, it's just not really there. I wish it were. I've gotten some great pieces in the past, and there were some great journalists who helped us out along the way. I will say, for those who might be listening who do rely on earned media and have avenues to get that coverage, that being very honest with the journalists you communicate with is key. Making sure, for example, that you're only making one pitch to one particular news outlet. So don't make the same pitch to multiple outlets. I think that could be setting yourself up for a bit of a problem, because people like exclusivity, journalists like exclusivity. But I would also be very frank with them about, oh, hey, I'm going to send you this press release, but I don't think it's right for your audience right now. However, next month I have this other thing that's going to be great, and there's this perfect angle that fits in with something that you're really focused on right now and something that you personally have covered. So same rules that we've followed for a very long time, but just the competition for that square footage on the page is a lot more, it's a lot more competitive. On social, I think that you really have to focus on your mission. You have to focus on the thing that you do, which is why I think, for example, that holding a gala in a high school gym for a nonprofit that supports a school, that's great. That gets people on campus. They're supporting you because they believe in the work that you do for that particular high school. So bringing them to that particular high school is not just logical, it is an absolutely smart move. I would say that it's imperative to connecting them to what you're trying to do. It is a fantastic way of making that immediate, just getting them across the threshold. Other organizations may not be able to do that just because of the way that they're structured, but you can always speak to the mission. You can pull back the curtain on the things that you are doing, showing them maybe the success stories that you have had, bringing them into your facility and showing them around on, offering some video tours, even talking about the problems that you have and highlighting those and getting some community input on how to address these problems. The great thing about social media, and also the bad thing about social media, is that people have the opportunity to express opinions. Not always opinions that we want to hear,
right?
But they are there, and people like to be engaged. They want to be heard.
Which platforms have you found for the NOCCA Foundation have been the most valuable in connecting with your donors and your user base? You find it's Twitter, is it Facebook, is it Instagram? And let's talk also about audience too, for those who are students who need to understand the connectivity between choosing platforms that specifically deliver against your audience. Let us know, like for your audience, if they're a little bit older or younger, or if you have a span and where you're finding that they reside most.
Sure. So it's interesting because the school and the foundation have slightly different audiences. The school's marketing communications activities are quite often geared toward recruitment. So they are targeting channels that appeal to teenagers. We at the foundation are targeting channels that appeal to slightly older people. So our audience includes a lot of alumni. It includes a lot of donors, people who like to go to parties, that sort of thing, people who attend cultural and arts events. So we skew slightly older. I find that Facebook is useful. I find Instagram pretty useful. We have occasionally used YouTube. I think TikTok is probably wrong for us. I haven't even ventured into that water. I will say that part of the channels that we choose are determined by the bandwidth that we have as a staff. And as a one-person communications team, there are only so many, nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, gosh, I would really like to join another social media. I really need another channel to join. Nobody will ever say that. So I'm going to stick with the ones that I know that work. But I will say that as email continues to produce really reliable results. It's like direct mail, but a little easier and a lot cheaper.
Can I go into that for a second? I want
Sure.
to go there for a second because I've been teaching the students about email recently, and we have different schools of thought around email because I know me in the morning, I just kind of go through, I have an unsubscribe, but I just delete, delete, delete. But I still find like open rates are around 15 to 20%. Brands still see, then they still are using it. So I think until they actually abort it or abandon it, people are going to still be using email. Is there a best practice you have on your emails with NOCCA Foundation? Is it personalization? Is it having one call to action? Getting very schooly right now, but just curious. You're saying that it does tend to work for you. Do you only use it sparingly? Do you do, a tip of the week? Like, how is it working for you?
Well, again, I think part of the reason it works is because we're nonprofit, and the people who subscribe to our list tend to be people who support our mission.
Okay.
I am more likely to unsubscribe to like a for-profit list selling shoes, or like a Zappos list, for example, than I am for a nonprofit that I support. But best practices, I would say, deeply segment your list. Like, know who you're talking to, know what they have attended before, know their relationship to your organization. So I have all of our alumni broken out by year. I have all my media broken out by the sort of beats that they cover. I have all of our fundraisers broken out by the year that people attended. So I can target just people that attended our gala in 2017 if I really want to. And that allows me to limit my messaging. So my churn rate is a little lower. I get fewer unsubscribes because people are getting fewer emails that are, and the ones that they do get are more relevant to them. And I also try not to email people as a rule too terribly often. Unless I have something that's coming up that I know I just need to hit them on a regular basis for, like, I'll just say Give NOLA Day is one of those things that you just kind of have to do it and bite your tongue and do it. But otherwise, I try not to. I prefer to email people like once a month, and that's my sort of monthly newsletter. And then a few single issue emails if I've got a concert or a gallery exhibition or something like that coming up too.
Yep. And that's what I wanted to hear, for people who are students of marketing, whether you're in class or not. One of the things that I've been finding is that if you offer real value in your emails, people will read it. So whether it's you're offering a quote of the week, or you're offering an interview, or you're offering a video, and then within that, you're kind of interweaving actually asking for something, but it's not every single week. Sale, 20% off, give, give, give. You can't do that. You're going to have a significant unsubscribe rate.
No, you need, people want the conversation. That's what they're expecting these days. It's the same rule on social media. Like, I don't think hard sells really work well on social media. I think it's about having that conversation. But yes, emails, if it is something that you are interested in, people will read it. That's why Substack exists. It's why Patreon exists to the degree that it does. Like, people are interested in that, and yes, I will sign up for your Substack because I like what you're doing and I like what you have to say.
All right, I've got two final questions for you. And we talked earlier, it's the end of the semester. We are recording this at the beginning of May, end of April, end of the semester. And it is crazy town for Loyola, UNO, NOCCA, everybody. So thank you again for your time today. The final two questions. One is, can you tell us, is there anything that you see nonprofits doing from a marketing and advertising perspective that you really wish they would do less of from a marketing and fundraising efforts perspective? Just something that just annoys you. You're like, oh, I really wish they wouldn't do that.
Absolutely. And I'm going to date myself with the phrase that I used to describe it, but I call it Sally Struthers marketing. I don't know if many of your viewers will remember, but once upon a time, Sally Struthers did, I think there were ads for maybe Save the Children.
Yes, Save the Children.
She would get on all weepy, and basically the message was, give us money right now or these children die. Maybe your audience would understand perhaps the Sarah McLachlan approach, with her animal rescue videos. That, I think those sorts of, that negative association marketing, that fear-based sort of marketing where everyone's going to die if you don't give us money, that results in a go away gift. Like, I'm going to give you $20 and you go away and don't bother me again. You're not going to get that recurring gift from me. I'm just doing this so I feel better and to assuage my guilt. I don't see a whole lot of organizations doing that these days. A few. But for example, just this week, when Politico published its story, it's the leaked version of the Supreme Court decision on the potential overturning of Roe v. Wade, I was expecting to get bombarded by emails from health organizations, health nonprofits about sort of in crisis mode, and I did get them, but the tone of those emails was often more a matter of, support us so that we can fight this, as opposed to everything is lost, everything is going to hell, give us money so we can all evacuate to the moon, or whatever their strategy might be. So I was actually a little impressed that it didn't come down to that Cassandra complex fear mongering.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. I hadn't thought about it that way, and I don't see a lot of that, but I could see where nonprofits might resort to that, especially if they are desperate.
I think it's probably a little more common in social service nonprofits who are dealing with situations that, to be fair, are quite often life or death.
Dire.
You're dealing with a homeless population or population with addiction problems. There are life and death issues at stake, and it is really hard sometimes to pivot and try to put a positive spin on that, or an uplifting spin.
They need it.
I think the opposite, not doing that is damaging in the long run.
So then, I said, my questions often beget questions, and I just have to add a question underneath that one to that point. For those social service organizations that might resort to that, do you have a recommendation, dearest Richard Guru, that you would offer as an alternative?
Well, I would talk about, instead of focusing on so much on the problem, I think it's important that people understand the problem. Obviously, I'm not saying to ignore it, but instead of focusing quite so much of your messaging on the problem. Talk about the solutions. Nobody, like, I feel like we are also reaching a point in the public discourse where people are overwhelmed by climate change, for example, and it's the volume of information that's being published about the potential problems that are coming our way with climate change is overwhelming. And I have found, just in my news feed recently, I am more apt to click on those articles that that talk about some upsides, some possibilities, some programs that are working. Nothing is going to completely stop it, but something to minimize the effects. It is a tough line to walk because you want to be honest and you want to be frank, and you don't want to turn your back on the problem and be all Pollyanna about it. But at the same time, you have to engage people and speak to them in a language that they can hear. And people don't like to be screamed at.
Right. Thank you very much for that. So then the final question, we try to keep these tight so people actually watch the full episodes. We talked about the gala earlier. Now I'm excited because I understand the NOCCA Foundation is having an amazing, fun, big gala on May 14th, 2022, Art and Soul. I personally have been struggling from a marketing perspective, my marketing firm, with producing galas because I feel like post-pandemic, people are fundamentally different. Having people, it's like on two different sides. So people want to get out. They are dying to get out and engage and talk and laugh and dance with one another. But on the other side, one directional content where you're doing awards and honorees and asking people to sit and watch someone come to the stage and do an acceptance speech, I just feel like gone is the day of that model. So can you just give us your point of view about the gala, right? Because the gala is a huge linchpin in marketing for nonprofits. Tell us how you think galas are changing and what would you recommend for anyone producing a gala for a nonprofit now moving forward?
Sure. I would say first that I am a little biased. My perspective is skewed by the fact that our gala for the NOCCA Foundation is not a sit and watch sort of event. So this is not, nobody's sitting down. Everybody is running around, eating great food and having a drink and dancing. And it's considerably more casual than the average gala. There are no black ties to be seen. People will show up in, khakis and a collared shirt. People will sometimes come in shorts if they feel like it. And we use the opportunity to show off our alumni and the amazing things that they're doing. But it's more of a big party than what you would think of as a traditional gala. I myself cannot stand most of the traditional style events where you're sitting there and you're watching somebody get lauded. It's like those ticket sales, the ticket sales for events like that are, they choose the people that they're going to honor based in part on who's going to bring in the ticket sales. So my organization is going to choose to honor Olivia F. Scott because they know that Olivia is going to talk to her friends, and her friends are going to buy 10 tables at $1,000 a pop. And that covers like a quarter of the room already.
Right. Loyola's going to come with their check. So you're going to honor somebody from Loyola. That's yes.
But I think throwing a fun party, people are always going to come to a fun party. And I think the idea of doing something so here's the deal. There is always going to be an audience that wants a degree of exclusivity. And I think that galas have room for that. That's why we have patron parties. So people can come an hour or an hour and a half early and get an experience that they wouldn't ordinarily get at the regular gala. But at the same time, I think there is a push to make events more inclusive somehow. Maybe that means creating a completely new event that is sort of a ancillary to the gala. I think it's different for every organization how you tackle that. But I'll just say it, and I think I've said it to you in private. I can't remember if I've said it on the stream or not, that there is no doubt that people want to get together. Yes. And event-driven marketing is not going to abate anytime soon.
Yeah.
It is easy because it is light touch. It is light commitment. It's like when you go to a museum, you could go and take a deep dive with the permanent collection, but that is usually sort of boring old master stuff that you have to really have a background in art to appreciate. Whereas the new Van Gogh exhibit, it's, all the stuff is explained for you and it's visually appealing, and you don't have to take that deep of a dive. It's a big event. There's a lot of hullabaloo. There's a lot of merchandise that you can get. It works the same way at a number of organizations. Just generally event-based activities I think those aren't going away. Sadly, the one thing that is not improved along with them is the technology that many of us use to throw them. So there are precious few platforms that you can use to host, say, auctions and ticket sales and all that other sort of stuff.
Yep.
If anybody here is listening and wants to develop a platform for that works seamlessly and looks beautiful, please call me because I will help you with it. There are some choices and they are all perfectly functional, but they feel creaky.
Okay.
Like they need some update because our I don't know about the galas that you go to, but our people they're looking at their screen to bid, but they're also looking at the stage.
Right.
And the stage looks great. Like the alumni that we have up there performing, awesome. It's hard to look away, but you do have to look at the screen for auction items and other stuff, and that is less appealing.
Yes. And of course, we're keeping those different software platforms nameless, but I feel like I just experienced one at that high school gala event. I was like, okay, I appreciated the text messaging. I appreciated the notifications that were happening in real time when I was at the gala, but you're right. The user interface definitely left a lot to be desired. So I thank you. We thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us about nonprofit marketing that you think people should know?
If you are listening to this and you feel like a career in the world of nonprofits with a special focus on marketing is kind of your thing, and it's something that would excite you, look into UNO's Arts Administration program. It's a master's program and it's fantastic. I love it. I teach in the marketing program and I have my degree from there. So
Richard,
Yeah.
are you really gonna shout out UNO with a Loyola professor?
I taught at Loyola in your business program also as an adjunct person. So I'm an equal, and I taught at Tulane. So I'm an equal opportunity teacher.
Okay, so here's what we're going to say for everybody. All right. So you want to get your foundation in marketing communications, come to the Loyola University School of Communication and Design. And then if you decide that you want to further, then where do they go, Richard, for their master's?
They go to UNO for their master's in arts administration. I've had more than one student come from Loyola and do exactly that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Richard, we'll definitely be in touch with you. Thank you so much for your time today. And everyone, know that there really is a difference to the art of nonprofit marketing versus for-profit marketing. We appreciate you for supporting Behind the Ad. Stay tuned for more episodes next semester. Have a wonderful summer, and thank you for all your support. Good night.